Hello, friends, and welcome back to the All Around Growth Podcast. Today is Friday, March 4th, 2022. This is episode number 298 of a show that provides insight and tools to build the life and homestead of our dreams. Today we are going to talk about planting by nature's signs, tulips, and a more active sun, which is incredibly appropriate this morning as I drive down the driveway on my way to the morning commute at 7:10 a.m. The sun is breaking just over the tree line, allowing everything to glimmer and glisten. And it is a beautiful morning. I hope that you are having a wonderful day wherever you are today, whatever time that it is. I was hoping to get an earlier start this morning, and I'd like to share a little story with you before we jump into the show topics. But I was hoping to get an earlier start this morning because I'm trying to get earlier starts and get accustomed to working longer hours at the day job, because we are approaching the spring season. As a matter of fact, we are 16 days from spring, if I'm not mistaken. And for those of us who work seasonally, and for those of us who do not work seasonally but are interested in all things homestead related, we can understand the cyclical nature of life and how that relates to, how it relates to the homestead. But I didn't get an earlier start this morning, and here's why. I ended up running into Cody as I ran out, and I was walking the dog, and I wanted to start my truck this morning, so I had a nice warm vehicle and a nice comfortable environment in which to record this morning's show with you. And I did so, and we talked. And normally we just see each other in passing and kind of go about our business, but we decided to engage and talk, and then we finally went our separate ways. And I was thinking of some connections that I have and some connections that he had, and he was washing lettuce inside the commercial kitchen, and I'm beginning to understand that this is becoming a functional and operational homestead that supports other small businesses. And he's networking with other people that I'm not networking with, and vice versa. And I went out there to see if some of his connections, long story short, we talked some more, and before we parted ways, I thanked him for being a part of what we're doing here, and thanked him for the conversation, and told him that, right now in March of 2022, I am literally in the exact same place where I was in life 9 years ago, trying to build, trying to save, basically trying to exit and build. 9 years ago, I was living in Southern California. I was living in North County, San Diego, San Marcos. And quite frankly, I was having a great time. But my calling is what brought me back here. My calling was my family and the growth of our own homestead, which was in its infancy and only an idea at that time. See, maybe this is what I've been trying to figure out. Maybe this is what I've been lacking. I've been searching so hard for my calling and working through these steps, setting goals in the 2022 Goal Setting Workbook by Dan Miller, working with the 48 Days Eagles community, doing this podcast, sharing my experience, my growth and my journey. I'd encourage you to start a podcast of your own too. There's a few of you out there in the audience who've done so. As a not necessarily as a result of listening to that show. I don't want to be so bold and arrogant to think that that's why you did what you did, but you did it and shared it with us recently, and that's awesome. Or at least shared it with me. And keep doing it, man. You know, that's how we find it. And sometimes it takes these moments of clarity, like I had journaling last night and this morning, to make me realize that what I've been doing has been successful. And please take a moment to realize that what you're doing can and will be successful as well, provided you are consistent with it and work towards your goal over time, consistently. So, planting by nature's signs, tulips, and a more active sun. Let's give this a quick scroll and see what we've got in store for today. The brown buds thicken on the trees, unbound. The free streams sing as March leads forth across the leas to the wild and windy spring. That's a brief poem by Elizabeth Akers Allen. And there are going to be some cool links in the show notes that you can follow up more and read about, from encouraging and forcing houseplants to bloom, and planting by nature's signs, reading more about harvests, tulips, and there's also an article titled Better Than Keto, No Carbs. Let's see what the brief snippet says on that. The end game of having a healthy weight, as well as more energy and a long, healthy life, comes down to a specific switch. You can flip your body to flush out unnecessary calories. I call it calorie bypass or caloric bypass. And by activating this specific process in your body, I have seen thousands, yes, thousands of people dramatically improve their health at age 50 and beyond. All right. Sounds like a bit of snake oil, but whatever. You read that if you want to check it out. So, a more active sun, solar cycle 25, off to a fast start. Let's check that out. There's also links for a perfect companion or a perfect guide for vegetable companion planting. All sorts of links in the show notes, and 10 ways to plant a garden that's low maintenance. But what interests me the most that I will touch on this last little stretch of the commute is the article, which reads as follows. It's about solar cycles. 25 solar cycle 25 forecast and updates. All right. So the sun is growing more active. It appears the new solar cycle 25 is off to a fast start, already surpassing forecasts. So what does this mean? We're going to read more about our active sun here as soon as I make it through this intersection, which is very strange because it's a school zone, and we've got one side driving quickly as they enter and abruptly slowing down, and one side driving very slowly. This is one reason why I like to get a jump start too. I like to get there before everybody gets there, so when everybody gets there, and if I need to help with anything, we're ready to roll, or at least I get a jump start on my own day. But the Old Farmer's Almanac pays attention to solar science as it's one of the disciplines employed in the making of our long-range weather predictions. And there's a link to see how the Old Farmer's Almanac predicts the weather. Our founder, Robert B. Thomas, who started this almanac back in 1792, believed that weather on Earth was influenced by the cooling and warming of the sun, as evidenced by sunspot counts. Sunspots are fiery storms on the surface of the sun. Links to sunspots in this article as well. We are now in solar cycle 25. We've now entered solar cycle 25, which is the 25th cycle of the sun since record keeping began in 1755. Now, over the years of observing the sun, we've learned that the sun goes through warming and cooling cycles of about 11 years, which affects the weather here on Earth. When one 11-year solar cycle transitions to another, it starts quietly with low solar activity called solar minimums, and then the sun's activity builds up to the cycle's peak called the solar maximum, and when its magnetic field reverses, right? Finally, the sun settles back down to a minimum before another cycle begins. So according to the NOAA or NASA records, solar cycle 25 began in December of 2019 and is expected to peak in mid-2025. What else happened in December of 2019 in conjunction with the grand solar minimum? Think about it. For reference, the prior solar cycle, 24, lasted from December 2008 to December 2019, an 11-year cycle. It was a very weak cycle in terms of solar activity, the weakest in the last 100 years. A solar minimum or peak occurred in April 2014 with only 114 observed sunspots versus an average of 179. All right, the past solar cycle, 24, lasted from December 2008, housing crisis, to December 2019, COVID. What's coming up next? Join us in the chat, t.me/allaroundgrowth, and share what you think will be happening in 2033, 2034. Solar cycle 25 predictions are as follows. The start of a new solar cycle 25 means that solar activity and sunspots are ramping up. The NOAA's official forecast for a weak solar cycle 25, below average, quiet, and cool. This is very similar to its predecessor solar cycle 24. All right, there are more thoughts, and this is kind of a lengthy article, but I will link to it in the show notes because I am here. And I think that some of these cycles aligning with world events is interesting. And I would be interested to see if solar cycles in the past and how they have aligned with other past events. So anyways, oh boy, it looks like some of the guys are back today. We have a couple of the boys from Mexico that make a road trip in their Prius, and it looks like they have arrived last night. That is exciting. And we are basically officially into spring. Everyone else will be arriving this weekend, flying in, and next Monday it's go time. All right, guys, if you like what you hear and you want to hear more or learn more, check out the show notes to do exactly that. Links to much of what was discussed will be there. And yeah, if you like what you hear, I would encourage you to share the show as well on social media. You can find us on social media: Twitter, Telegram, Facebook, and Float at All Around Growth. Feel free to shoot me an email, allaroundgrowth@gmail.com. I look forward to catching you on another episode on Monday. I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great weekend as well. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.